Season 8 is now in the rearview mirror. We got that nice and close up to the beginning of the Formula One season. I know you just finished watching it hours before we started this podcast, Kevin. Yep. I got a chance to finish it yesterday. We chugged through all 8 episodes. A couple episodes lighter than most of the seasons so far. So
no, I do want to start off by saying, spoiler alert, if you haven't finished Drive to Survive yet, definitely go and watch it. Because that's exactly what me and Tristan are about to talk about for however long we do talk about it. So spoiler alert, 1, if there's any bits and pieces that you wanted to see it for yourself, go watch it yourself. This is just going to be a regurgitated version. But Tristan, I think
opinions on the episodes and the season on the
episode overall. I think what we should do first initial rating of the season as a whole. I know what my number is.
On a scale of 1 to 10, or are we doing 5-star ratings? What are we doing?
Scale of 1 to 10. Yeah, scale of 1 to 10 works. In comparison to other seasons.
I think on a scale of 1 to 10, overall this season, I think it was a very solid season. I don't know. I don't think anything's ever going to quite replicate the intimacy that we got of the sport of season 1, just because there was a lot less going on, so to speak, right? Every team wasn't being covered in season 1, so we got that nice intimate look. But I did like this season. I think it was a really good improvement from season 7, where a lot of season 7 was just, contextualizing things incorrectly or not covering things really well. There was a lot of different ways, kind of clickbait, or just not covering things correctly. The biggest thing that stood out to me last year was they covered George Russell's win in Belgium last year, that he ended up getting revoked because of they got disqualified, right? But they touted that that was his big win for the season, and it didn't stand, right? But they just went with it anyway. This season was a lot better. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, though, to finally bring it home, I think I'd give it a 7.7 out of 10. It's a solid score. It's not the best piece of television I've watched, but it's hard to watch something like this because there's not a lot that you're going to get that you didn't get during the season. There are some episodes where I feel like we got a little bit better of an insight and a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more depth on a situation. And there were other episodes that I felt like from an entertainment perspective or a knowledge perspective as an F1 fan, I didn't really gain anything. It was just TV to watch. So I'd say 7.7 out of 10. Not a lot of problems with the season. There was a lot they could have done with this season. I'm sure it was hard to figure out exactly which way they wanted to go, but 7.7.
I'm going to lean closer to an 8. I really wanted to go 8.5. But I think I have to knock it down a little bit because this season, compared to other seasons, was only 8 episodes, rather the 10 that we normally get. And I really would have enjoyed 10 episodes of this season. Maybe a quick look into what 2026 is going to look like with the new regulations. I probably would have enjoyed a half episode of that. Selfishly, a little bit more of Lando celebrating his win. We really only got 8 to 10 minutes.
Post-credit.
Yeah, we only really got an 8 to 10 minute snippet of Lando getting to celebrate one of the craziest drivers' championships we've seen in quite a while. So I probably would say something closer to that. But overall, I thought the episodes that they decided to kind of hone in on was really well done. I really liked the Christian Horner episode.
Yeah,
and
I think I agree.
We talked about that a little bit. The Williams episode was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed the Williams episode. The Vegas episode, was well done. Despite the McLaren double DNF, I thought the way they set it up, for someone that may not have been able to watch last season, say season 8 was their first time watching any form of of any form of Formula One, that dramatic, kind of delivering that dramatic performance, exactly how we felt when we got the notification that McLaren double DNF. I mean, I know the things that I was feeling and the things that I was saying I can't say here, and nor should I say anywhere where a microphone is near. But, I thought they delivered that pretty dramatic situation very well. I think that the episodes that they decided to kind of just do not a one-on-one, but kind of just focus in on one situation, thought they did really well in the Sauber episode. I thought, I thought maybe a team like Sauber they might have overlooked in the Sauber Alpine kind of half and half, 50-50, if you will, really is what it was. But I walked away from that episode definitely thinking about Sauber a little bit more. So I really did enjoy the more one-on-one, we're going to focus on this context or focus on this situation, this team. I enjoyed those episodes for sure.
Picking up where you left off there, episode 2 of the season, the Alpine and Sauber, contrast episode. With that added knowledge that we got from the Alpine situation, Jack Doohan deserves so much better than Alpine as a whole.
We knew that. We knew that.
Yeah, we kind of knew that, but getting another close look at it, it made me feel really awful for the guy. Obviously, F1 is a dream for every single one of these drivers. It's a cutthroat business, don't get me wrong. But the way that the Jack Doohan situation was handled was, from the outside, we thought that he was basically set up to fail. And even the interior looks that we got, it felt like Flavio Briatore was ready to chop the dude's head off the second that Colapinto got there. Because of episode 2, I have a lot more respect for Jonathan Wheatley and what they're now doing at Audi. Mm-hmm. And I like his leadership approach. I think that for what they need from an organization perspective now, he's the right guy. And it showed that you can have that, encouragement level leadership, that style, and it can result in really good things. Hülkenberg's podium and the overall sense within the stake, kick Sauber, team that they had that season was really positive. Having uplifting, positive leadership versus everybody's head is, on the slab, Flavio Briatore style. It was a really nice compare and contrast. I liked the decision that Netflix made to do that episode that way. Unfortunately, for Alpine in this episode, there's not a lot of redeemable qualities. No. I'm now on what feels like an Alpine hate watch for 2026. I'm so upset about that episode because the way that Flavio Briatore handled things and the way that Colapinto was introduced make them.
And you already hate Franco Colapinto as the TL.
I do not hate Franco Colapinto.
Yes, you do. I've heard when you told me off of the air.
Argentinians did not agree with, and hopefully they don't find me in the street for having opinions that they don't agree with. Look, they did not make themselves look any better within this behind the scenes look. Flavio Briatore became legitimately the villain of this season, and deservedly so. He was not necessarily...
I don't understand how Pierre Gasly handles it. He's just like...
He is vibing on the paycheck. He is vibing on the stacks of cash that they are paying him.
The relationship in Alpine is crazy because, from behind the scenes, we all felt bad for Jack Doohan, but we felt bad because we knew he was probably going to lose his job and he kept underperforming and he kept crashing. But we didn't really understand the magnitude of the internal issues that were happening, right? We didn't.
Yeah.
We were just seeing what was happening from the outside perspective.
Jack Doohan was getting death threats in Miami. Like that is not. That's not handling it well, right? Like that is a.
And I think the saddest part was hearing him say, the worst part is that everybody ended up being right. He was like, there's no way they're gonna do a switch this early. Like there's no it's crazy to think a team would do a switch this early with a rookie driver. And then hearing him say like the worst part is that the whole media was right. Like that made me bummed out for him. So I was like, there's no way that should have happened. But also Jack Doohan, shout out to you for getting out of the Alpine system, bro, because you're going to be successful anywhere else but there.
I'm hopefully his mental health improves. He seemed like the inside F1, a lot of the punditry before he became the official Alpine driver was Jack Doohan seems like a really good kid. He would be a good contributor. He was a good contributor in the media. He would go on and regularly talk to like the punditry and the broadcasters and talk about what was happening, in his journey. And overall, the guy, Jack Doohan seemed like a good guy. I'm hoping that he has a very fruitful career. Unfortunately, a cutthroat business. It's unlikely we'll ever see him on the grid again. Obviously, he wasn't making a massive impression on pure pace. But overall good dude. It sucks that got swallowed up by that situation. Everybody's obviously looking for their opportunity to get into this sport. It's a dream come true. Unfortunately for Jack Doohan, it seemed like it was a nightmare. Another great episode you mentioned earlier, episode 4, the Red Bull situation, Christian Horner, Liam Lawson, making Liam Lawson do the shirt change in the episode while being interviewed, in my opinion, was diabolical by Netflix. Do you want to go ahead and change that shirt, Liam? I guess I have to. I felt bad for Liam in that moment. The soul and the spirit being ripped away in real time by the guys at Netflix. You hate to see it because by all accounts, Liam seems like a generally okay guy, to be around. Yeah. Really messy situation. The poetry of that episode, though, Christian Horner being sacked mid-season, my opinion, was really fitting, given how they've treated a number of drivers at Red Bull over the years. Reflecting on it, it showed Horner didn't really know, in my opinion, how to evaluate driver talent. That's what made Helmut Marko so key. But now he's gone too. There's a new era at Red Bull. The part that I think they might have left a little bit shorthanded this season was introducing Lauren Mekies as the guy to take over Red Bull. During the Las Vegas episode, that was my big down point, was he doesn't really get an introduction. They're just like, hey, here's Lauren Mekies. All right, now with the rest of the episode.
It didn't really explain. It didn't explain
what his journey to getting into Formula One is and him getting to this position. I felt like there was a lot of meat left on the bone there. But the Las Vegas episode, outside of that, turned out to be a really solid episode with a twist at the end with the McLaren double disqualification, played right into the finale for episode 8. Unfortunately for episode 8, if you're an F1 fan, you didn't really gain anything from episode 8. I don't feel like the season finale gave anything to Formula One fans to really latch onto that we didn't know already. We already knew that Max Verstappen was the horror movie villain because that was so widely reported in the media that he called himself.
I have to disagree a little bit because I think episode 8 showed Max was more optimistic than he claimed to be. Like, because in the media and what we had heard was Max is like, oh, I've already got 4 of these. Like, what's another one? Like, who cares? Like, I'm just here to have fun. Like, whatever. Like, nonchalant Max Verstappen. But like behind the scenes and talking to his management, talking in the middle of the race, it was very clear he cared about one thing and one thing only, and that was winning and the possibility of winning another driver's championship. And that's not anything to fault him. I'm not faulting him about that because it would be inhumane to not want to win another one.
I was never questioned. I don't think anybody ever questioned Max's desire to win the championship. I think the reality of the situation, was the way it was framed in the episode and the way it was framed in real time were very much so the same. He's got 4 championships. For him, there's only anything to gain here, nothing to lose, right? Him battling back on its own was already a marvel. Of course, he wants to win the championship. And Lando Norris, of course, wanted to win the championship. And Oscar Piastri, of course, wanted to win the championship. The drama and the stakes were certainly there, but I don't think Max was necessarily misrepresented in real life versus what we're seeing in the show. I think it was very similar, but it did, again, revamp the reality, which was, I have nothing to lose here, and I have everything to gain here. Maybe they'll make the mistake. Lando Norris, of course, didn't make the mistake, won his championship. We got the moment of him winning the championship with a little bit extra, but nothing in that moment was necessarily changed for me as a fan of, okay, this moment he wins the championship. There's some new audio, or here's this really interesting statement that he made. Nothing was really changed there. So episode 8 was fine. It was the finale of the season, but again, I don't really feel like we learned that much from that episode. Episode 5, though, before we move on, the Williams episode, the Sainz journey with Williams to his first podium, the highs and the lows, could arguably be the best episode.
Yeah.
Mostly due to the risk factor of it all being built in really strongly. James Vowles understanding what his role is here, and Alex Albon's role here, and the inter-team dynamics. I liked seeing how much it meant to Carlos Sainz to get not just on the right track, but for that podium to be such a huge relief for the team. I really enjoyed the Williams highlighted episode a lot. Other notes I had for the rest of the season, though, episode 1 was probably the weakest episode to me overall.
I didn't dislike it as much as you did.
I think the editing was a mess in the episode. The introductions for the rookies were fine. They establish all these rookies are here, but they don't really do a lot with them throughout the season. It was very much so a highlight on Kimmy, and which is a look as a Kimmy Antonelli fan, like that was cool, but we didn't get to see much else. We didn't get to see much else besides Jack Doohan's, obliterating at the hands of Alpine throughout the season. We got to see Liam Lawson very quickly turn around, but we didn't get to see anything from like Bortoletto or really. I would
have enjoyed more Oliver Behrman for sure, because Oliver Behrman,
especially with like how solid Haas were last year. Especially with how solid Haas were last year, Ollie Behrman getting that P4 in Mexico was a huge point. Like, this is what I said at the beginning. There was so much meat on the bone in 2026. I'm sure it was really hard for the production team to really nail down exactly which direction they wanted to go. There were certainly going to be things they left out. I feel like Haas could have been a really interesting story on their own. Maybe if we get 2 more episodes, Haas gets their own dedicated episode for the season. Yeah. But episode 1 just felt like the biggest mess. They did a whole introduction for all the teams at the O2 Arena, the F175 event. You got to see 9 of the 10 teams, and the one team they left out within that highlight was McLaren, who just won the damn Constructors' Championship. So again, episode 1 to me was the weakest episode. Episode 3 was pretty solid. That was a very McLaren-esque episode. My biggest question in that episode was, trying them building the tension point to when Lando and Oscar Piastri were going to kiss. I'm just kidding. When they were going to crash. We got to see evidence that Zach Brown does. We had to see some evidence that Zach Brown doesn't actually neglect Oscar Piastri, at least in front of the cameras. So that's nice.
That was stupid BS. McLaren fans think that Zach favors one. I mean, that just still pisses me off. And all of the F1 fans out there who, I can't believe Lando Norris is a world champion. Oh my God, blah, 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 whatever. Like, McLaren haters are so funny to me. Like, they hate us for the craziest reasons. But no, and I guess while we're talking about it, I enjoyed number 1 problem, which was episode 3, right? Episode 3 or 4, I can't remember.
For which episode? For the McLaren episode was 3.
McLaren episode 3, yeah. And then I really appreciated 7 and 8, more of 8, because we make fun of Zach Brown. Not in a bad way, but he's a meme guy, right? Like he kind of says silly things sometimes that we in the media like to kind of poke fun at, or he's a little fun guy. So, and he does silly things at times. Oh, is this the World Championship hotline? I know that got a lot of clicks, right?
Corny.
Corny, exactly. That's the word I'm looking for. He's very corny, but I think you kind of got to see a little bit more his leadership style. Like, I'm going to talk to the drivers, or I'm not going to talk to the drivers. I need to go say sorry to the drivers. I need to talk to Lando. I need to talk to Oscar. And maybe somebody's like, yeah, well, I would assume he does that. But to kind of understand that it isn't just Lando. He's also going out and letting Oscar drive his cars and having one-on-one talks with Oscar when Lando's not there. Just like how he's having one-on-ones with Lando when Oscar's not there. It's a very interesting way to see how somebody handles having literally 2 number 1 drivers. And another thing, I'm kind of surprised you haven't talked about it yet, but adding I'm blanking on his name. Rosberg.
Yeah, Nico Rosberg.
Yeah, adding Nico Rosberg to the casting, kind of given his experience with the battle he had with Lewis. I thought that was a genius find on their part, because who else could explain being in the situation with 2 number 1 drivers better than him? So I do want to give kudos for that.
I appreciated that move. I don't know that it. The problem is, respectfully, this battle was not nearly as intense as the Mercedes rivalry, where Nico ended up coming out on top. It wasn't. They tried to bill it this way, but throughout the entire season, papaya rules, yada, yada, yada. Like, it was done pretty cleanly, with all due respect. There was that one crash in Canada, but otherwise there wasn't a lot of these clashes the same way that we heard about or saw about of the Mercedes duo. And I'm not saying that like it obviously wasn't tense. It certainly was. I think where maybe Drive to Survive missed the mark on that is showing not just Lando's decline, but Oscar's choke job too. We didn't really see that. We just go episode by episode, and then we get to Abu Dhabi, and oh yeah, by the way, Lando Norris is leading the championship, right? We saw the double DQ in Las Vegas, but we didn't really understand how Oscar lost this championship. We didn't get to see a lot of that. I think that was a big miss the mark on Drive to Survive's part, is you have this championship that swings in really three different directions between Max and Lando and Oscar. And I don't really feel like we got the full highlight of, we got to see a little bit of the Lando rise and fall, or I guess we'll fall and rise. We got to see Max's presence in this championship, but Oscar really became this third party when in the reality of the 2025 season, it was Oscar's championship for so long.
I would argue majority of the season. It was Oscar's to lose.
It was not even an argument. It was his championship to lose for the majority of the season. And we just don't get that really explored upon well, at least in my opinion. I think that there was a lot that, again, just oversaturated with stuff to cover in 2025. Maybe that's the excuse, but if you're talking about a three-way championship battle, they forgot about a third by the end of the season. So that was my biggest criticism. That's why I can't give this thing an 8.5, or I can't give this thing an 8. There were just a couple of missed opportunities that, unfortunately, Drive to Survive didn't quite highlight. However, I still enjoyed the season. I think most of the episodes were still pretty good. There was definitely entertainment value there. 7.7 out of 10. There are worse seasons of this show for sure.
Oh, for sure.
And if you only consume Formula One, passively through Drive to Survive, you're going to love the season because there's so much drama. But let us know your comments, though, down below, what your thoughts with Drive to Survive were, the state of Drive to Survive, if you will. We've talked about Drive to Survive quite a lot on this episode. We have so much more still to cover, though.